Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here. Post game one, it's the midday between Monday and Wednesday as we set up game two. Another late start tomorrow night in LA as the Oilers look to avenge the game one loss and, of course, avenge their own mistakes that, quite honestly, doomed them after 40 minutes to play. Yes, that 20 minutes to end the game was quite something. But the mistakes in the first 40, just way too much to overcome for an Oilers squad that rode McDavid and Draisaitl to the finish line and still came up empty. So we'll discuss that more here in a matter of moments. But if you are new to the channel, friends, consider hitting that subscribe button. Would love to have you aboard as a regular viewer here on the channel. You can see the playoff format's a little bit different than in years previous, but I promise you if we get some spare time, we'll get those live streams up. That's just a matter of resourcing the time a little bit better this year. So here we go. Lineup notes for game two. That's where we'll begin today. Matthew Tkachuk activated off of the LTIR for the Florida Panthers today. The lone major name on LTIR to be activated in time for game one. Now that the Florida Panthers get the benefit of starting on Tuesday, and therefore everybody else is pretty much or is going to play game two tomorrow. So it's the same thing, isn't it? However you want to justify whatever the league's doing here by allowing Tkachuk to play game one versus everybody else like Kane and Landeskog, your guess is as good as mine. Don't really care. Doesn't really matter. Again, the mistakes and the sloppy play in the first two periods, whether Evander Kane's out there or not for the Oilers, wouldn't have made a difference. Now, John Klingberg, he is a guy I think at least in some part could make a bit of a difference for the Edmonton Oilers compared to namely Josh Brown on the right side for the Oilers. That one, it was a head-scratching decision to see Josh Brown in. Yes, when you see his role in that game one, you understand why he's in. But again, I think, if you're looking to just alleviate some stress on your guys early in game one, having Cam Dineen in there might have been a better option for the Oilers as opposed to playing Josh Brown, 5-something odd minutes. It was a dumb, stupid, low number for the Edmonton Oilers yesterday for Josh Brown. Again, penalty kill primary and a couple of shifts against the fourth line. That was his night in LA last night. Lineup notes continued here for game two. According to Chris Knobloch today, he will keep the game two starter a mystery going into tomorrow. That is, of course, I figure justified given what happened in game one. And I figure for LA as well, maybe a little bit of a shell shock there with what happened with Darcy Kemper allowing 5 goals on 25 shots last night as well. So neither goaltender anywhere near perfect last night. One bounce, fluke, whatever you want to say. Again, you'll say we needed one more save. I understand it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But again, for the Oilers here, it comes down to we don't think that it was clear-cut that Stuart Skinner at all should have started game one. So again, it's fair to say that game two should not be clear-cut who's starting. Frederic, ice time last night, not due to injury. Keep that in mind. Frederic was just a victim of a shortened bench. I actually might have misspelled Frederic's name there. My apologies. I've made a lot of mistakes like last night's overtime win by the LA Kings. If you caught the post-game edition I did a little YouTube short there, those little vertical video styles that you catch in your feed on YouTube. I mentioned that it was a 6-5 overtime win for LA. That just happened after I was scrolling Dallas, Colorado stats and happened to see they were in overtime and totally forgot what I was doing and then hit record and didn't rewatch it. So my apologies there. Got to be a little bit better this time of year, and unfortunately I wasn't on that one. So let's go here to the game one notes for the Edmonton Oilers. And like I said, it boils down to me. I will say for the Oilers, there was a lot of things that you could point the finger at, whether you want to do it at Stuart Skinner, whether you want to do it at Evan Bouchard, whether you want to do it at rusty play from the players in the first bit, whatever you want to point the finger at. Honestly, just not engaging, not getting out there and realizing it's playoff hockey, not realizing you're playing the LA Kings for the 4th year in a row, and it's go time from the puck drop of game one, which the Oilers have a major issue with doing that. Every single game one, it seems like they're playing from behind almost instantly over the past 4 years. Well, that's the case again last night. And I will tell you, if I'm going to point the finger at any one thing here today on the recap look ahead edition for game two, is it's just a poor first 2 periods that are the main contributors to the loss last night. Again, the Oilers for 20 minutes and 5 seconds of the final bit of the game were world beaters. They dominated the LA Kings. They destroyed the LA Kings. They scored 5 goals in 20 minutes on the best home ice team in the NHL and almost won the game if it had not been for a selfish decision to try and win the game in regulation as opposed to save it for overtime. So, I mean, the Oilers, a poor first 2 periods, and then they get a little overzealous there at the end of the game trying to win it all on momentum in the final 50 seconds of the game, sorry. Math was hard there again. That's, you know what? I couldn't even figure out when the game ended last night, so keep that in mind there too, as it's been a lot to take in here the past 24 hours. All right, we continue. Game 1 notes. Here's what I would love to say about saying I will point the finger at the start as opposed to anything else here today. Simply put, Darcy Kuemper has had godly numbers compared to Stuart Skinner this season. Godly numbers compared to Stuart Skinner probably over the course of his career. But you look at the numbers last night. Yeah, okay, yeah, you want Skinner to have the last one? Sure, I wanted Skinner to have all 6. That doesn't change the fact that he gave up 6. It just changes the fact that I'm saying something different than you. So we look at this here. Kuemper, let me tell you, every single player and every LA fan can't believe he gave up 5 goals last night. Specifically 5 goals in the last 20 minutes and 5 seconds and almost choked a 4-0 lead. So that's where you would say the Oilers might have bought themselves some favors here going into game 2 of the series, is if you have figured out, and the Oilers, to their credit, put pucks in the feet of Darcy Kuemper in that last 20 minutes, and man, did they start finding success. So if they can figure that out, and as the LA goalies have had trouble with as the series goes on, Darcy Kuemper especially susceptible in my view, simply because what do we know about Darcy Kuemper? You know, that Colorado series run there where he won the Stanley Cup, they won it in spite of him, right? They did not win the Stanley Cup because of Darcy Kuemper. They won it in spite of Darcy Kuemper. So keep that there as well, up top there. Simply, Darcy Kuemper might not be as invincible as he seems, and if the Oilers have cracked him because of that third period, it could landslide quickly. That said, LA very well here in the back half of this series could get better as the series goes on as well. And I will say, we are in the back half of the series now. We don't have to wait for game 3 or 4. We are in the back half now. The opening fireworks, it's game on from the word go, at least I hope, for the Oilers in game 2. And it's going to be each team that wants to win is going to have to get better and better and better by the period. And the Oilers, they're starting a game down here in that quest. And the Kings, they only need 3 more to get the job done. So that's kind of the wild part here for the Oilers right now, is they got to really build on the momentum they sustained there throughout the third period. Now, game 1 heroes, I wanted to take a look and kind of say some good things about some guys here on both rosters. It was pretty evident last night. You saw Andrei Kuzmenko had a pretty solid game. So did Kempe. So did Danault. Those two are fixtures over the past 2 series for the LA Kings in terms of what they've contributed to the Kings offense. Kuzmenko, a newcomer to the mix, and he had a pretty legit game 1 start to this series. So we have to give a little bit of hat tip there. And of course, for the Oilers, it was the big 3 that showed up. I think, McDavid, Bouchard, Draisaitl, obviously all the big guys showed up for the Oilers. Everybody that played minutes in the third period did well. But you have to mention, of course, Corey Perry as well, kind of showing up and showing out there, having a really solid game 1. He's a guy who, as the playoffs drags on, may see his ice time, may see his role limited and kind of diminished by other performers higher in the lineup. And of course, for Corey Perry, at least now, he gets a little bit of a swan song here to begin, being able to go out there and dominate game 1 in fashion with the big boys for the Edmonton Oilers. So good for him. And we move on to the final little bit of information I got for you here. I promised myself I was going over the 10-minute mark here on today's video, and that we will do right now. The game 2 needs for the Edmonton Oilers going into Wednesday night. Discipline, right? I think if you look at just the boxcar numbers for the Oilers, kind of the stat comparisons, the real basic stuff, the Oilers owned everything except for the penalty markers. And obviously you battle up your discipline a little bit more, you tighten up, you get going just that little bit more in terms of playing within the whistles, and you know what, it probably works better in your favor than it did last night against LA. Number two is, again, kind of a culprit of the bad start in the first two periods, where for the Oilers, if they would have just found a way to play 10% better in those first two periods, we're talking about winning this game 5-4, 6-4, 6-5, something like that. Is it still would have been a high scoring affair, just given the fact that goaltending was not the greatest on either side. Defense was not the greatest for the Oilers throughout much of the game. But, you know, if you maintain possession just that 10 seconds longer in the LA zone twice in the first two periods, you probably pot a couple of goals that stopped the landslide that made it 4-0, and you end up going out there and winning that hockey game. So again, a better first 20, a better first 40, and the similar last 20 is going to do wonders for the Edmonton Oilers in game two if they can get there. Again, high and mighty of me to say that when I'm calling Kings in 6 or Kings in 5 or Oilers in 6. And there's some things you can talk about when it comes to the Oilers and the injury issues that might point to that Kings in 5 if things landslide in game two again. But we'll remain to see what happens. Obviously, now we've got the actual facts and evidence to talk about, which is nice, instead of talking about this, that, or the other thing that could happen. We know in game one what did happen. And that final note there, continue punishing the Kings. That is very critical. The Oilers held a handy margin in the hits category. That's something that we had talked about throughout the season as possibly happening, where the Oilers light up the hit category a lot more heavily in the playoffs as compared to what they did throughout early parts of the regular season. We seem to have seen that last night. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk and discourse across social media from kind of ex-pros in the NHL talking about, you know, you throw that extra hit in the first period of game one, you throw that extra hit at the end of the whistle in period number two of game one. You know, you rub a guy out on the boards every second play instead of going soft on them every second play, and suddenly, you know, you buy yourself favors, you intimidate them, you wear them down, you make them think twice, and suddenly, you know, game four comes around and there's a critical play in the third period and you win that puck battle because you've hit that body 5 times out of 5 so far in the series. And just because that little second thought, that hesitancy wins you the puck, and away you go, scoring the goal back the other way. So there's tons to like about game one for the Oilers. There's tons to hate. And unfortunately for me, I didn't really get a full glimpse into game two, game one. The weather down here in southern Alberta kind of kept interrupting the feed, so it was kind of a situation where I missed a little bit of the game. Maybe some critical junctures there that definitely, talking to some folks today, I definitely missed one or two things that I would have loved to see. So unfortunately, that's where it's out. Again, maybe a glowing review despite the loss from me. That's fine and dandy. Or maybe a negative review from me if you just don't like what I said. That's fine. It's okay. Whatever you think, it's all good. Friends, that is game one as we look forward to game number 2 tomorrow night. Looking forward to having you aboard for whatever coverage I can throw your way. Again, I'm not sure what's going to happen here in this first round series. It's kind of all up in the air at this point, but we'll make it happen as this series continues along and the Oilers look to win game number 2 Wednesday night, late puck drop. Let's get to it. Let's go Oilers. I'm up on, out of here.